looks like a prize fight, tough day. Somebody,
Mike Rosen,
got to see it all.
On News Radio 850 KOA.
We're going to talk about ObamaCare for the first part of this hour. A little later in the show, I want to talk about perhaps that ad you've been hearing on our air about Al Jazeera America. This is the outfit that's taking over Al Gore's current TV. I think they paid, $500 million for it, and all that money comes from the Emir of Qatar, Qatar. Used to be pronounced Qatar, now they pronounce it Qatar. In any event, this is designed to promote an Arab-centric viewpoint on the world, although they describe it as unbiased, in-depth reporting. Yeah, right. We'll talk about that a little later. On the topic of Obamacare, our guest this hour is Dr. David Hogberg. He's the healthcare policy analyst, Hogberg, the National Center for Public Policy Research, healthcare public policy analyst. And this is just another example of one of the many inherent flaws in Obamacare. This one regarding the 18 to 34 cohort. These are the young invincibles, they're called. And a lot of these people don't imagine they need health insurance because they're healthy. And why waste the money on premiums when you can buy another iPad with that money or take a vacation? So what are they going to do in regards to the mandate if the mandate is actually enforced? Are they going to pay the fine, which isn't that expensive, or are they going to simply go ahead and do what Barack Obama wants them to do? Let's find out. David, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So this group is known as the Young Invincibles, and you say they won't participate in the Obamacare exchanges, and you're going to tell us why it matters. Go right ahead.
Sure. Well, 18 to 34-year-olds is what I looked at, especially those that were single and without children. And these are the people who have generally pretty low health care risks. Their medical expenses are overall pretty low. And basically what I found is that about 3.7 million of them would actually be $500 better off if they were to forego insurance on the exchanges in 2014 and pay the penalty, which is in 2014, pay the penalty for not getting insurance, which in 2014 is either $95 or 1% of income, whichever is more. So basically, someone could have, in this group that I looked at, would have basically their out-of-pocket costs for the premiums for insurance on the exchanges would be, say, $595. Well, if they just go without the insurance, pay the $95, they're $500 better off. And, we're not talking people here for whom, $500 a year is chump change. I mean, most of these people were in the $20,000 to, maybe low $30,000 range. $500 could easily be a month's rent, pay for a lot of groceries, things that, are important to their lives.
Why isn't the fine higher then?
Well, it's going to be going up to $325 the next year and $695 the following year. I think they were just hoping, the architects of Obamacare were just hoping to ease people into the fine. And, in future years, if not enough young people are getting into the exchanges, the premiums will go up even more. To the point that it may even be you may even be better off even paying the higher fines than paying for the premiums.
Now, the purpose of mandating health insurance on individuals is to get more money in the pool, so that insurance companies will have enough money in the pool to cover the costs of people who have hefty medical expenses in a year, while a lot of other people have virtually no medical expenses in a year.
Well, it was the purpose, and combined with two regulations that are going to govern the exchanges called community rating and guaranteed issue, and we can go into those in a little bit. But if you're going to have those regulations in force, those regulations tend to have the effect of driving young and healthy people out of your insurance pool. And so the architects of Obamacare came up with the individual mandate fine, and also the subsidies, help subsidize the premiums to hopefully get the age 18 to 34-year-olds in there.
I'm talking, though, about the consequence of not having enough people in the pool paying insurance premiums.
Oh, absolutely. And that's basically, my study suggests not enough of them will be in there. And basically, what that leads to is what's known as an insurance death spiral. That is, the young and healthy people start to drop out of the insurance pool. The pool becomes older and sicker. The cost of covering it goes up. Insurance premiums have to rise to cover those costs.
Unless subsequent legislation prevents insurance companies from raising premiums, price controls on insurance companies.
Well, in that case, what ends up happening is insurance companies can't make a profit on those markets, and they'll just start dropping out.
And those markets now are going to mean the entire United States of America, which, of course, is the longer-term objective of a lot of these folks that want a single-payer system. They want to do away, and some of them have actually said this, they want to do away with the private health insurance industry.
Yeah, I was really a little surprised that Senator Harry Reid, of all people, was quite that open about it. Does kind of make you wonder what the long-term objectives here were with Obamacare. I mean, I don't usually give politicians that much credit for thinking that far ahead. But, again, with Harry Reid's comments, you got to wonder, was the objective here to move us along to single payer? Was the objective to create something that maybe didn't work? You could blame it on markets and then say, well, markets don't work, we need to move to more government.
Of course.
I don't know that that's going to work. I don't think too many people are going to be fooled by the notion that this was a market problem and not one of expanding government.
That's okay. There are enough people in the country that want socialized medicine.
Well, I hope you're wrong on that.
Well, that's the Democrat core.
That would be true.
Yeah, and so I think there's no doubt in my mind that this was the long-term policy, and as you indicated, some of them actually revealed that this is where they wanted to go. Others, of course, were cannier than that and didn't quite say that in public. Let's take a break here and talk about what the consequences will be for a young, healthy person who refuses to buy health insurance, paying the penalty, which is the penalty for not following the mandate to buy insurance. What happens when that person gets sick and incurs huge medical costs? We'll get to that right after this on 850 KOA.
NMLS 182334, regulated by the Division of Real Estate.
I've been telling you about my friends at American Financing for some time now. They're sponsoring this hour of my podcast. American Financing offers the new government-backed down payment for first-time home buyers. Call American Financing at 303-695-7000 or online at americanfinancing.net. Dr. David Hogberg, our guest, healthcare policy analyst for the National Center for Public Policy Research. We're talking about how Obamacare is actually going to work when younger people, a large percentage of people in the 18 to 34 bracket, are simply going to pay the $95 fine or 1% of their income and not pay for health insurance if they don't get employer-provided health insurance. Now, anybody who can afford it, in my judgment, is irresponsible if they don't have health insurance. If they have any assets to protect, they can lose everything they own if they have a fabulously expensive medical condition. If they don't have any assets then and can't afford health insurance, then they're not going to be left on the street to die. They can go to a hospital and they'll be treated, and they won't have to pay. It happens all the time. But regarding a young person who could afford health insurance, who decides to fly without a parachute, so to speak, and gets really sick and incurs huge costs, what will be the consequences?
Well,
I want to dig a little deeper into what we heard today, and joining me,
where the regulation of guaranteed issue comes in. Guaranteed issue basically means that insurers have to sell you a policy at any time, regardless of illness or whatever. Regardless of a pre-existing condition. That's right. And Obamacare does use the exchanges use a modified version of that, where insurers do have to sell you insurance, but only during the October to December enrollment period, and then the insurance begins in January of the next year. So if you're a young person, you get sick with an illness, say in June, you've just got to figure out a way to cover your costs until the end of the year and then get insurance, and then the insurance will still start at the beginning of the next year, starts helping you pay for your costs. Now you might say, well, that's risky. It is, but you have to understand that right now, if you get that illness, you run the very real risk of no insurer being willing to cover you. And so what you're doing is you're going from that situation to a situation of less risk. And if you reduce the risk for not having insurance, well, guess what? More people are going to go without insurance. And that's because under Obamacare, presently in effect, an insurer has to issue a policy
at a rate well below what you'd have to pay with an expensive pre-existing condition.
That's basically correct, yes. Starting up when the exchanges begin, yes.
Under community rating, your health condition cannot be a factor in determining what your premiums will be.
Yeah, community rating, its strictest form basically means that insurers have to sell everyone a policy at the same rate. Again, the ObamaCare exchanges use a modified version of this. They cannot vary, insurers cannot vary the premium on the basis of health status. They can vary it, say, for smoking or for age. However, they use the age rating that they use is far more truncated than what is usually used in the private market, so to speak. And but ultimately, what that does is it raises the premiums for the young, healthy people. So that's where the financial incentive comes to not buy insurance. And then you have this guaranteed issue that says, well, if you do get sick, you can get insurance. So you're providing incentives here for young and healthy people to drop out of the market and drop out of the insurance.
And all of this is done in the name of compassion and fairness and social justice. Except if it doesn't work economically, it's going to collapse.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the exchanges are probably headed for a death spiral where the price of insurance will become unaffordable for most people. And all I can say is always beware of politicians bearing gifts with names like compassion and fairness.
Well, as I was suggesting before, in terms of the long-term goals, let's say that insurance premiums become unaffordable for most people. Do you imagine that the Democrats are then going to say, okay, the conservatives were right, let's just forget the whole thing, and people who can't afford it will just have to die? No, of course not. What they're going to do is go right to socialized medicine.
Oh, absolutely. But one of the risks here, though, is that this Obamacare is really the Democrats' issue. And if this thing doesn't go well, I think they want it to go well enough so that it will be an electoral benefit to them down the road. If it does not go well, then the other side has an albatross to hang around their neck, and people might actually, enough of the public might be looking for an alternative to more government. They might be actually looking for free market alternatives. Certainly, if the Republicans and conservatives are on the ball and take jump on that situation. Certainly I'm going to be here advocating that. I'll just leave it at that.
But you're not the New York Times, and you're not ABC and NBC and CBS and the Washington Post and the Associated Press. Republicans are going to explain why this collapsed economically, and Democrats are going to blame it on greedy insurance companies, greedy doctors, and greedy hospitals.
Well,
and that's going to be echoed.
The New York Times and AP and all that. Gosh, you make it sound like I'm outnumbered.
You and I are outnumbered, and the liberal media is going to echo the Democrat talking points, as they always do.
Well, remember they did echo the Democrat talking points, and they've been echoing the Democrat talking points, and this law has not gotten any more popular in the public opinion polls. In fact, it's gotten less popular, and regardless of what the media seems to parrot on this issue, people can see what's going on. Apparently, can see what's going on with their own eyes, and don't like it.
Well, opposition to Obamacare is a little misleading because it combines people who don't like it, who didn't like it from the beginning because they don't want socialized medicine. It also includes people who are beginning to see some of the negative consequences of Obamacare, who supported it and now want to go all the way to socialized medicine. So they're telling pollsters they don't like it either, but for a completely different reason.
Well, I think the latter is a relatively small portion of people, and look, I think there's a real opportunity here to move in a more market direction. I'm not dismissing the real risk, the risk that this could ultimately end up with more government. That's always a possibility, but there are forces out there fighting for more market-based situations. And all I can suggest to your listeners who are interested and concerned, that's what you've got to do. Well,
that's what you and I are fighting for. David, if you were to get an accurate poll of people in the United States of America, my guess is at least 40% and maybe more right now would say, I prefer a single-payer system. Now, some people understand that socialized medicine. Some people don't understand it, socialized medicine. Some people don't even understand what socialism is, but they want more guarantees and lower costs for themselves.
Well, everyone wants that. Who doesn't want that? The question is, what's the best system that gets us closest to that? And it's certainly a market system. And
that's what you and I believe. What I'm saying is we're looking at much more opposition to a market-based system than you and I would like to see.
I wouldn't doubt that. 40% might be a little high, but not by much. And look, it's all I can say is it's good to point that out, because you do have to realize the type of what you're up against when you're pushing for free market positions. What you've got to do, one thing you've got to do is you've got to highlight what goes on in single-payer systems like Britain, Canada, with the waiting lists and these committees in Britain that decide whether or not you get life-saving drugs, all of that sort of thing. Do you want to end up with a private hospital room, or do you want to end up on a more public open ward like they do in Britain? Do you want to end up in an ambulance where to reduce the amount of wait time in the emergency room, what they do is they just keep you outside in the ambulance until the emergency room tells you to bring you in, as they do in Britain. These are all things that we need to highlight. And one of the things I think the Republicans did a very bad job of when this debate was going on was going out and getting people who had struggled in these the healthcare systems of these other countries and bringing them over here and saying, hey, this is what government-run medicine looks like. That's something that we need to do a better job of next time round. I think that will do just as much to change minds on being in favor of single payer than any policy study will.
And how would Republicans convey that message, the one you just described? How would it be delivered to the American public, that message?
You start by holding a press conference.
And suppose ABC, CBS, and NBC doesn't want to put it on the evening news.
Well, you just keep going at it until they do.
Well, but suppose they never do.
Then you get it out through the other media.
Yeah, you can do it out. Listen. Listen. There are other media channels, and they can go on Fox News, and they can go on my show, and they go on Rush Limbaugh. But all of those are perceived as opinion channels, and paid ads on TV are discounted by anybody who has any sense whether they're Republican or Democrat. What I'm saying is the dominant liberal establishment mass media is not going to convey that message because it helps Republicans.
Well, there's some things that even the dominant liberal media can't ignore if you hammer them long enough. They haven't been able to ignore the IRS scandal.
Boy, they've sure buried it quickly, though, haven't they?
Well, they've done their best with it, but people are certainly aware of it. And look, you've just got to keep pounding the message until it gets through.
Well, that's what I do, of course, and I'm too stubborn to throw in the towel. I'm just saying it's much more difficult practically than just saying Republicans need to get that message out better.
Oh, I would agree with it, but it's a start.
Yeah. Okay, David, thanks very much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
David Hogberg, healthcare policy analyst from the National Center for Public Policy Research, talking about the media. When we come back, let me talk about Al Jazeera America.